Welcome everyone to today's customer webinar with Chart Industries. I'm Catherine Dragan with Salonist, and it is my great pleasure to welcome Nikki Spillers, the Director of North American Business Shared Services at Chart. Today, Nikki will be sharing Chart's process mining journey and how they have been able to streamline and remove friction from the processes. As a reminder, we will be having a Q&A session at the end. So throughout the presentation, you can submit your questions anytime through the GoToWebinar console. Now let me pass it off to Nikki.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Catherine. As Catherine said, my name is Nikki Spillers, and I lead Chart Business Services for our Western Hemisphere. A little bit about Chart. In 1992, Charles and Arthur Holmes formed Chart and took it public. Our ticker symbol is GTLS, which is gas to liquid systems. Our focus is cryogenics. Chart is a recognized global brand for the design and manufacture of highly engineered cryogenic equipment used from the beginning to the end in the liquid gas supply chain. Some company facts: our current market cap, we're at 2.6 billion. Last year we had annual revenue of 1.1 billion, and our employee count globally sits around 5,000. One slide I really like to share is where we play. We are in a lot of different industries. If you look for the rocket, we're in space exploration. If you look for the red barn, we're in artificial insemination. We can help power ships and transport gases safely by train or sea. We supply the equipment for many other industries, including restaurants. And if you enjoy a craft beer or cold brew coffee, we make the equipment that adds liquid nitrogen to that type of canned beverage. Working with Salonist, we think about seeing the big picture and taking the guesswork out of making decisions. In 2017, we moved our headquarters from Cleveland, Ohio to Ball Ground, Georgia, which is just north of Atlanta. And at that time, we created shared service centers in 3 locations. One in Ball Ground for Western Hemisphere, one in Deccan, Czech Republic for Europe, and one in Changzhou, China for the Asia Pacific region. It's imperative for us as a business to automate processes so that operational growth doesn't turn into full-time growth, or FTE growth, I'm sorry. We try to enable our existing team members to add more value by removing manual touches within our processes. We've had increased sales as well as multiple acquisitions over the last couple of years, and we've had to come up with a strategy to handle this. We need visibility to data as well as the ability to streamline our processes throughout the organization without having to conduct long, lean, or Six Sigma projects. With the increasing demands on people's time in our organization, Salonist has helped us see the how behind the issues that occur and allows us to go straight to the people involved to get the why. As a business leader within the organization, we try to know what questions are our internal customers trying to answer, what processes are they having issues with, and then do they even know that they're having these issues? Business changes quickly, and the questions that they're asking do as well. Working with Salonist has helped us remove the silos and see our processes from end to end and be more proactive instead of reactive. Today, I'm going to go through our driving strategic initiatives as well as our Salonist plan and our lessons learned. In working with Salonist from the beginning, we decided to start with our order to cash and our procure to pay processes first. We've made a business decision to keep all of our operational metrics in Salonist while we have other solutions for some of those financial metrics. As well as part of our strategy to help with this, we've created GPOs or global process owners for each of these processes that live in the different regions. And some lessons learned, understanding your data right away so that your metrics answer the right questions is really important. We also found that we needed a detailed data reconciliation plan By tying out your data ahead of time, you spend less time answering questions on whether the data is correct and more data on reviewing the processes. We created an Excel-based tie-out that is done on a monthly basis before our metrics go out, and we're in the process of automating this tie-out with a robotic process. So to go through some examples, the first one is we had a business driver of reducing manual touches. With some Salonist findings, our question was how many Core 360 vouchers require manual intervention and could be automated? Core 360 is an AP reconciliation tool. We are historically a JD Edwards shop, and with some of our new acquisitions, we have now included some different ERPs. Core 360s can sit on top of these ERP solutions, and now my AP team can work in one system. Some action items out of this initiative were to identify manual touches, identify resolutions for each of these, and put them on a project timeline, with the result of redistributing or reducing resources. And our estimate was if we could reduce manual touches by 40%, we could have estimated savings of $448,000 per year. This is really important for Chart in its current environment because with the numerous acquisitions we've had recently, we've had an increased number of transactions processed in each of our shared service centers. Next, we had a business driver of transparent reporting and understanding of spend. Here, our Salonist finding question was, how often do P-card purchases occur and what amount is lost through the reduced involvement of purchasing? As part of our P2P initiative, we are trying to understand our spend. Before this time, we had one credit card program for T&E and P-card spending. Card users were buying inventory items, which meant we could not report or create metrics on these expenses. Global sourcing couldn't ensure they had all data related to inventory purchases to negotiate contracts. And there was no visibility into the unit prices we were actually paying for these items. Some action items out of this project were we created a new credit card program with a credit card, splitting out our credit cards between T&E and P-card spend. We built an integration file to Salonist that brought in all of our spend data with the details behind it for both cards so we can see what people are spending money on each card. Based on all of the information we found, we updated our P-card policy to limit inventory purchases to less than $1,000 and only in emergency situations. Reducing P-card spend and having them go through purchasing means we get our contract pricing. The original savings based on the calculation above was $105,000 per year. Global sourcing has also taken this a step further using more Salonist technology and has reduced our item costs even more, generating additional savings across the organization that these prior P-card transactions would have lost out on. So next was our business driver, automation and cash flow. We had some Salonist findings here. Customers paying late, leaving discounts on the table, debt collection causing friction, and customer outreach incurring thousands of hours manually. As our business has grown, we have customers that historically were handled locally by each business unit before our shared services were created, whether this was in the US or international. Data for customer setup and terms were different and have been duplicated, and our AR team was trying to collect on invoices for customers with multiple terms. This caused delays in receiving payment and a lot of frustration from the back and forth. Some action items out of this initiative were reevaluating terms with our customers, hoping to reduce late payments, determining where we could create automation in our processes, And reducing manual touches and refocusing our staff on value-added activities allowed us to save around $237,000 per year. And last, we do have initiatives that we see in Salonist where we don't necessarily calculate a savings. They are more subjective. In this example, our business driver was straight through processing and automation. Some Salonist findings here were our AP automation tool, or Core 360. Our cycle time was showing within tolerance. We were also seeing a large percentage of vendors were paid late. For AP, we do have an SLA, or a goal of a cycle time of 10 days or less from invoice receipt to voucher creation. This does not include to payment. In Salonist, we're showing a cycle time of 7 days for purchase orders and 9 days for non-purchase orders. We were also showing in Salonist we are paying suppliers late over 50% of the time. We did not understand how this was happening. Through a lot more research within Salonist, we found that employees are submitting invoices late. Our conclusion was they were getting invoices from suppliers, and the invoices were sitting on desks or in email inboxes. When these invoices are entered into Core 360 and the original invoice date and due date are entered, we pay them as quickly as possible, a lot of times on the next payment run to get them out, but we still show them paid late on our metrics. This causes a lot of issues such as the perception of being a late player, frustration for suppliers, working capital issues because payment date is based on terms and invoice date. So if we submit an invoice late, if it's submitted after the due date, then the invoice is paid immediately, which makes it hard to forecast cash as quickly. So in summary, with Salonist, we have been able to do root cause analysis on connected data and avoid fixing issues in a silo or using a Band-Aid, which usually causes the issue to pop up again, or you have to keep adding resources. Most people think of fixing issues as it affects their job, their role, and their team. Instead of trying to sell process changes based on guesses, Salonist has given us the backup to move forward with buy-in and start working with other teams. Having the data or proof right away is much faster than going through manual process flow sessions just to hope to get to the root cause of the issue. So I thank you for showing interest in Chart's journey and joining this webinar. I'd like to invite anyone to ask any questions.
Great, thank you, Nikki. As a reminder, you can submit your questions through the GoToWebinar panel, but a few came through, so let's get started. All right, so this is broken up into 3 questions. So what was the implementation process of Salonist like? How many people were involved with the deployment, and overall, how did that team look?
Yeah, so we worked with Salonist to determine what processes we wanted to start with and the metrics we wanted to include. Our biggest initiative was we were creating shared service centers from scratch. And so when you do that, there's never a best time to create a shared services center. So we had to just bolt our process on to the current business processes. And we wanted to change that to where it was a more streamlined, automated process and avoid any extra steps that anybody had to take. So that's why we started with order to cash and procure to pay. We had one strategic lead, the person making the decisions, working with the different business groups to determine what information drives their business, what metrics do they want to see. And then we had one analyst. We've added more processes, so this has gotten a lot more involved. Global sourcing is now using Salonist as well, so we have more people included, but we did start off with one strategic lead and one analyst.
Great. So the next question here, and you sort of started mentioning it with the team involved with the implementation, but who is currently leveraging the Salonist technology at Chart, and do you see it moving to other teams as well to start leveraging?
Yes, so we started off, I send out a monthly presentation on all metrics with the hope to drive interest. We didn't want to have some training and then the product just sit out there. So we decided to push out metrics to show what the system can do and the information that they can get. We are now in the process of training each of our business units to get them into the system. Since we started pushing out the monthly presentations, we've started getting questions on the trailing 12 months is showing this. Where did this come from? We've been able to answer the questions with them either on a Skype call or in the room very quickly. And so it really pushed interest in getting them into the system and getting the data themselves. We are now pushing, like I said, global sourcing is in Salonist, and they're working with our purchasing teams and buyers to get them into the application. We are also combining all P2P, so from source all the way to purchase, all of that data into one application so we can really use the process maps and see where our bottlenecks are. We also have a number of initiatives around order to cash where we can start leveraging those process flows.
So going off of that question, we got one that came in asking how many total users are there in Salonist today at Chart? And can you have any insight to whether the users are analysts versus business or versus data engineers at Chart?
So currently we have one IT engineer that's in the system, and then we have 3 analysts that can actually build the metrics, and then we probably have about 20 viewers that can go in and look at the data and pull analysis. Chart uses the term an analyst in the system as the person, but they're more of the person that can create and change metrics, whereas a viewer is more of your typical analyst that goes in and reviews the data and pulls metrics.
Awesome, thank you. Next question here. So Salonist needs data. Where were you pulling your data from, and what challenges, if any, did you face in connecting your business data to Salonist for analysts?
So this piece did take a little bit longer. We were Salonist's first JD Edwards client, so on both sides we needed to get used to Salonist and how it worked, and Salonist needed to learn how the JD Edwards tables worked. And with that, that's where our tie-out became very helpful. In JD Edwards specifically, there are a lot of different ways you can have your data flow. And without having a good understanding of that, when we first built our metrics, they didn't tie to the financial statements. So that really caused us to have to understand our data and how the data is built so that we can make sure that the information ties to our financial statements. So we build out our monthly reconciliation process that makes sure that each metric ties and portrays our financial statements correctly. And so, as I mentioned before, we are working on a robotic process that will do that for us.
Next question here. How do you keep tab of insights, and how do you act on each insight?
Are you saying requests for data in the system?
I believe that's what they are asking.
Okay. Currently, it is through email. We are building a portal for our team where people can go in and request updates and changes to the metrics and process mining data in Salonist.
Great. Next question here. How did you get leadership buy-in to Salonist? Did that happen immediately, or did it take longer, and how did Chart handle that process?
We were pretty fortunate at the time that one of our big initiatives was to create our shared service centers. And so showing that the whole reason behind our shared service centers were to take repeatable transactions from the business units and centralize them and then standardize them and make them more efficient. So with that initiative, we need the visibility into the data. So that's where the need for the process mining came in, and then being able to have metrics behind that. Our VP of IT was at Oracle Open World a few years ago and saw a presentation on Salonist and met with them at that time. And it just ended up being a perfect fit for our need, for our strategic initiative. So there was not a lot of buy-in needed. Or it didn't take a long time to get the buy-in needed.
Great. Next question here. Where did the project start? In finance, line of business, process owners, or in IT?
It started with our process owners. So we have global process owners in order to cash and procure to pay. And in building out our shared service centers, Salonist fit the need for being able to see our data clearly and where our bottlenecks are. Every one of our business units does each process differently than the next one. And so we do have a lot of bottlenecks that would take a lot of time to figure out what's causing them, because it's not going to be the same bottleneck in each different location. And so with the Salonist tool, if we're having an issue in one area, we can filter on that business unit, that region. We can filter by customer, by product line. There are many different ways of filtering the data, and the process maps update according to what you filtered, and so we can zone in on what the issue is.
All right, I think we have time for about 2 more questions. So the next one, how do you typically engage users and business groups across chart to maximize Salonist use?
We started driving the interest within our monthly presentation. People started asking questions. We could show how quickly we got the answer. And then people started asking, how can I do this myself? As I mentioned, we have about 20 viewers in the system now. We have a project plan to get this out to all users over Q3 and Q4. So we'll be through all of the United States by the end of Q3, and then we'll be through Europe and Asia by the end of the year.
Awesome. So final question. Where do you see your role and growth with Salonist going at Chart?
We're always trying to think of ways to make our processes easier for our teams. In shared services, we try and always be thinking of how can we add value and show the value that the shared service teams create. Are there easier ways to get our data? There have been times my team or other teams will say they don't want to produce a report daily at month end because it takes too long. Our first question is, don't we already have this data? Do we have it in Salonist? Can we build the metrics ourselves? We've had salespeople asking us, why is it taking us so long to get our orders off of hold? And we can go in and look and determine what's causing that. It's been it's our quick go-to when we get questions of why do we have issues, what's causing the problem, why does our data look like this? We can quickly go into Salonist and find the answer. So it's getting other users to go there as quickly as we are. We do have to train, but the system's been really intuitive to figure out the answers on your own pretty quickly. So we're not getting a lot of repeat questions. Once we show how we got to an answer, they get it and they can move on and answer the questions themselves. But as with any organization, there's always something that comes up. Once you fix something, something else rises to the surface, and we're able to address them pretty quickly with Salonist.
Great, that now concludes today's webinar. I'd like to thank you, Nikki, for sharing Chart's story with everyone. A recording of today's presentation will be sent out later today. That is it. So everyone have a great rest of your day, and thank you once again, Nikki.
No problem. Thank you. Have a great one.